Get $3 off every order at PlayAsia by using the code CENSORED.
Hello everyone, Tom from Censored Gaming here. The New Zealand Classification Office, known as the Office of Film and Literature Classification, or OFLC, recently had gamers sit down and give their opinions on several controversial titles. The purpose of this was to help inform the censors with second opinions from other gamers, specifically young people between the ages of 15 and 21 who are most affected by the classifications. It's worth pointing out that these sessions were not regarded as formal research, but rather as an engaging platform for young gamers to voice their opinions on the subject. 3 controversial titles were chosen: Hatred, Dead by Daylight, and Postal III. Hatred is a game from 2015 in which you play as a disturbed man taking out his frustrations on innocent people in a shooting spree. The game is an isometric third-person shooter, but a modified version of the game was played here with a first-person perspective. They explained that this was done to facilitate a discussion on its impact. All of the gamers found its content to be worthy of restriction. They showed empathy for the innocent people being slaughtered and found it to be needlessly violent and boring. Some players found it to be a good way to release tension, but most had negative reactions. One person even went as far as saying that it reduces empathy, and to quote, "you lose sense of the real world and get used to killing people." They also took issue with the language in the game and its black and white visuals, stating that it makes it feel more dark and evil. The OFLC explains their reasons for not banning the game. They felt that it doesn't promote an ideology or worldview that might encourage the violent behaviours found in the game. They determined this due to its over-the-top and darkly comic nature, and its isometric perspective creating distance between the player and the violence. Next is Dead by Daylight, an online multiplayer game where one player plays as a killer hunting down the other 4 players. 2 of the gamers found its levels of violence to be very brutal. However, it was generally considered game-like by everyone, and that the objective wasn't to commit violence but to win the game. They felt that this distinction lessened the impact of the game's violence. One female player pointed out that the game's resemblance to the horror genre would also make it less likely for players to find it shocking. The participants didn't feel that the game would be detrimental to teenagers, but thought it was reasonable to restrict it for less mature audiences. The OFLC agreed with this statement, stating that older teenagers and adults are likely to be able to place the game within its fictional and ludic context, and are further likely to identify generic elements of the fantastic villains that they play as. Finally, we have Postal III. Postal III had a playful and humorous tone that heavily contrasted its violent dismemberments and decapitations. Additionally, the game allows you to urinate on dead bodies, as well as containing racist themes. The participants found that this tongue-in-cheek tone lessened the impact of the violence, and that its third-person perspective disassociated the player from the events on screen. The game's racist attitudes were found to be more amusing than offensive by players. The males in the group concluded that the game should be classified R16, whereas the females in the group were split between R16 and R18. Postal III is not banned in New Zealand, unlike Postal II, which is illegal to sell and own. Postal II was banned in 2004 because the OFLC determined that it supports dehumanizing conduct, such as urinating on people, and that it allows the player to inflict extreme violence and cruelty. So what makes Postal III different from its predecessor? According to the OFLC, they felt that the third entry had a greater focus on its satirical story. The setting has a more stylized aesthetic, and that its tongue-in-cheek nature ensures that the player understands that their actions are reprehensible. Because of this, they felt that the game was not promoting or supporting the negative behaviours it presents. They state themselves that the offensive stereotyping and bigoted attitudes are presented throughout, yet the interstitial cutscenes and self-aware dialogue ensures the violent and bigoted content is presented as intentionally offensive entertainment. Finally, they thanked the young people involved in the study for giving insight into the attitudes and values of the average New Zealander gamer. They also cite a journal suggesting that video games do indeed have an effect on players, and believe that most New Zealanders tend to agree that this content can be harmful. Some may disagree with the Classification Office's view, however. As Censored Gaming has reported on many times in the past, most research actually fails to link video games as being harmful to players. Hopefully though, this has been an informative look into New Zealand's attitudes towards violent video games, from the perspective of its young gamers. I've been Tom from Censored Gaming, thanks for watching.